Welcome everyone out to our Leighton City Council meeting for June 2nd of 2022. Our start time is 7:02. So once again, I appreciate your patience on this starting here. As customary, we have each month we rotate our turn as far as the council and myself on who's going to lead out our meeting tonight with a prayer and a pledge. And tonight we have Councilman Bloxam that will be leading us on that. So Councilman Bloxam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I extended an invitation to Pastor Kevin Lambert of Church of the Nazarene here in Leighton, but he wasn't able to make it. So you're going to get me instead. So I'm going to open with a prayer, and then we'll lead as the pledge. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for all the many blessings that thou hast given us. We're especially grateful to meet together in this wonderful community. We're grateful to discuss the issues of this city and to make the decisions that will be best for all of those who live here. We are grateful to have the freedoms that we enjoy, and we're grateful especially for those first responders in our police, fire, and public works who help make our life better each day. We ask thee to please bless us as we discuss and deliberate, that we may have thy Spirit to be with us. And we ask for these favors in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, stand and repeat the pledge with me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilman Bloxam. We'll go on to item number 2, which is municipal announcements. And I know each one of the council members kind of oversee different areas. So council, anybody have any announcements they'd like to make?
Couple from the Parks and Recreation Department. June 4th is going to be family recreation here at the Ed Kenley Plaza. Family game night from 5 to 7 p.m. So bring your family out. There'll be games around the plaza and a Mario Kart tournament in the amphitheater. So bring your gaming skills as well. Saturday, June 4th. Did I say that right? Yeah, Saturday, June 4th. Is that right? This coming Saturday. I did make a mistake. The game night, what's Monday? What's next Monday?
6th.
The 6th. So that game night is the 6th, Monday night. This Saturday, June 4th, is the pre-summer bash at the Surf and Swim from 7 to 10 p.m. at $2 admission. So get ready for summer.
Okay. Thank you. Bettina?
So in the way of arts, we have Davis Arts Council. Their summer night series starts up in June. You can visit their website and see if any tickets are available. They did have quite a bang when they opened up, but that will be going on throughout the summer. So please check out that. Also with On Pitch Performing Arts, they also have summer activities for your youth as well as events for you to go and participate in. So again, On Pitch Performing Arts, go to their website and Davis Arts Council and boost up your arts for the summer.
The Leighton City Youth Council, a great bunch of kids. And what they do is try to emulate the council. But anyway, they're out cleaning up the park at, I call it the photography park, but the trail that goes up and around Hobbs and that. But they're out there picking up all the trash. And, I thought that was kind of neat for a bunch of kids to go out and do something like that. And it's not easy, and it was hot. So I was glad I had a meeting to go to. But anyway, just to let them know.
Yeah.
And one thing, I don't know who did it. I think it was Corey Waters. They redid the elevator. Yeah, it looks great. I don't know if we do stuff like that, but I was impressed because I use the elevator. So they did a great job in there. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, any other announcements? Okay, if not, then we'll go ahead and proceed with We do not have any verbal petitions tonight. I think we took care of them all at our last meeting, which was fun and exciting. But I'll move on to our citizens comment period. So if anybody in the audience wishes to make a public comment on an item that's not on the agenda or that's under our public hearing, then you're welcome to come up to either side of the podium and state your name and go ahead and address the council at this time.
Thank you for a few minutes, Mayor and City Council of Leighton. My name is Preston Cox. Live at 257 South, 3200 West in Leighton. And just want to take a few minutes. And I know water is a big issue on the agendas of everybody lately, it seems like. And I'm the owner of Perennial Favorites Nursery, so water is a big factor to us as well. But I guess what I would like to say is, will you please, each one of you, take a few minutes and think of the value of the landscapes in Leighton to the city of Leighton. I served several years on the Utah Nursery and Landscape Association board, and many years ago in California, they had a similar situation where they had severe water shortages. But they got to the point where they limited the water for outdoor use to the point where they lost most of their landscapes in their communities. And talking with one gentleman that lived down there at the time, he said, years later, they realized that was a huge mistake that they made because they didn't put the value on landscapes that they should have at the time. And for some reason, it seems like landscapes are always getting the black eye for abuse of water. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of Utahns that are horrible at conserving water. These people that water their lawns every night or every other night, that's just blatant disregard for living in the second driest state in the union. But I'd just like to say, in your own individual homes and yards and landscapes, think about the value of that landscape to you. I mean, I love the landscape. I spend a lot of time in my garden and I enjoy it. That's my little oasis. That's my little decompression chamber, so to speak, that I can go out there and I can enjoy it. And I think a lot of us are the same way. I think that we really value having that little bit of alone time in the backyard, and having it look nice and pleasant and appealing. And so I just say, I guess please work with Weber Basin on this. Our reservoirs and our stream flows are better than they were last year by quite a bit. And I think another thing with Weber Basin is they need to realize that they can't keep selling water that they don't have. And I'll bring up the example of the Wasatch Peaks Resort. Now, Weber Basin has made a commitment to this resort on the Morgan side of 2,500 acre feet of water for a private resort that only those that buy a home or buy a membership in this resort can use this resort. So it's a ski resort. It's going to have an 18-hole golf course. It's going to have eventually 750 residents that live there, along with clubhouses and, things that take a lot of water. Well, you think about 2,500 acre feet of water. Okay, that's 4 square miles, 1 foot deep. Or if you take one of our super blocks out here in West Leighton, that's a mile on every side, that would cover that with 4 feet of water. Okay. I'm just saying, I just don't think that that's right, that the rest of us continue to have to make sacrifices when they're still, like I said, I think, in my personal opinion, selling water that they don't have and that we don't have. And I think that the cities that are working with Weber Basin, I think the cities need to put a little more pressure on Weber Basin to be a little bit more responsible. And also more responsible with the numbers that they're reporting, because they're all over the board. And I watch them very closely. It's a big part of my income is, what water is going to be available for homeowners to buy plants and plant in their yard to enjoy. And so if you'll go back and you'll look at the numbers that they've been spouting ever since about January, you'll see that they're all over the board. I don't think they're very truthful in the numbers that they report. They're always changing the numbers that they report. One of the last reports I heard about 2 weeks ago was, we've been caught off guard a little bit because all of a sudden we're having 25% less runoff than we anticipated. Well, these are professionals at managing the water. Okay, so either they're flat out not telling the truth about the water available, or they're very incompetent on measuring the water in the snowpack. Either way, something I think needs to be done. And I think the cities that are serviced by Weber Basin, I think you really need to hold their feet to the fire on the water and where it's going and what it's being used for. And like I said earlier, a lot of Utahns wasted a lot of water, and they need to be educated, but they can have a decent landscape with reasonable amounts of water. But the amount of water that's been allocated this year, and I know this, I've been in this industry for 45 years, there's not enough water allocated to personal landscapes to sustain those landscapes, okay? And one blanket policy for all different types of soils, slopes, elevations does not cover it. You're going to lose, in my opinion, you're going to lose a lot of Leighton's landscapes unless something's done to allocate a little bit more water for that use. So thank you again for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Preston, and thank you for the time that you've served this city on the Planning Commission as well. Okay.
So Don Fitzpatrick, 1197 South Graceway. I just wanted to bring up a point, and I had mentioned it once before to Alex. I live right by Shoreline Junior High School, and every day when I leave in the morning, I watch some really dangerous circumstances occur. On 1000 South as the road curves onto 1700 West as it approaches the road going into Shoreline Junior High School. Right now, there's an addition of construction on the west end of 2200 and 1000. We have a lot of trucks, traffic, or trailers and everything on that road. I know school's out, but it's not going to be long before it starts up again. The road is currently closed at that junction for construction for a new subdivision that is going in. We have 13 homes nearing completion. We have another subdivision just to the west that is probably going to have 30 to 40 homes in it. The Ovation home subdivision, I think, has close to 20, and Husky has been approved for about 12 homes. These kids will all walk at this intersection. There is currently a crosswalk east-west on the road that Shoreline sits on, but there is currently nothing on 1000 West as it rounds to 1700. We have a lot of parents that take their children because the sidewalks are not complete in that area. There's no really safe way at this point for the kids to get there. But I'm just really concerned, and I think that the city, along with the school district, needs to look at this intersection before school starts in August. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Patrick. And also, I want to thank you for your service here at the city, both on the Planning Commission and a council member.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Laureen Kamalu, one of the 3 Davis County commissioners. So Farmington is the county seat, 61 South Main Street, for my address, I guess. And I just want to, first of all, thank everyone in this room, the electeds, the other public servants, the citizens who engage. It's so important. Just really, really grateful for service and for engagement. And of course, the county is also local government, and we strive to be supportive to all 15 cities. So we just encourage, and I've already said this in the work session to everyone who was in that room, but to citizens as well, to feel free to reach out to the Davis County Commission for ideas, questions, feedback, all of that sort of thing too. We live in a great county, and it's because we have great people and wonderful leadership in each of the cities. I just want to tell everyone that we have a really important event for the whole county next week, including all of the public. It's been years of discussion and effort to make decisions for the Memorial Courthouse, the building in Farmington just north of the current administration building with big, beautiful columns that was built right around 1830. And it had additions to it, a lot of history, a lot of important work, and some interesting and funny kinds of things there too. But it's been vacant for just a few years, and for several years it was determined there would be a historic renovation of that 1830s building, which is just about complete. And on a week from tomorrow, so Friday, June 10th, at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, there will be a public ribbon cutting and open house. And everyone is invited to come and to see this really, it's a great icon in the entire county. And again, 1 p.m. is the ribbon cutting, and then open house all the way till 6 p.m. for everyone to be able to come and walk around inside and see what was preserved. There's some pretty cool things like old corbels and original marble and light fixtures, and it's a wonderful thing. Inside of that building, after this open house and moving forward, the county work that will go on there will include the civil attorneys group and the public defense and the pretrial group, as well as upstairs tourism. American Legion will have just a little space to keep doing their service out of there. The old courtroom will be an open space for county kinds of events. And so it's going to continue to be really well used. Some of those have been in temporary spaces for the last several years, or never really had space much that they need. So that's kind of my big thing, to invite everyone and also to thank you. And it's really nice to be back in person after the pandemic, and appreciate, again, your service and working with you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. And likewise, we appreciate your service. Okay, is there anyone else on public comment? Okay, Mr. Tudor.
Tommy Joe Tudor, 1757 Gregory Drive, Leighton. First thing is to all of my thousands of military friends, and thank you for awarding the police and firemen. This has been a great month for last month and this month. And of course, you all know I served my country 20 years of my life. And so I'm for all of them: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and the Coast Guard. Won't want to leave any out. And so I'm quite high on favoritism, and I have credentials to go up and talk to anybody at Hill Air Force Base. And I've done that for years and years, since 1970. So I just like some nice thank yous to everybody, and get to know about the building in Farmington. I used to go there and register my car before you was born. And now I'm going to spread the word to go to Farmington and also to the building and see what you're going to do, because I'm of the interest all the time to get things done. And I thank all of you for you serving.
Thank you.
This is serving, and good night. And you all have a great day. And the holidays of the great 4th of July coming up, which I know many military that I've been getting on the phones to come down to the Leighton Park and, of course, buy everything you want. And I think you will. I think you're going to have a great 4th of July here in Leighton, Utah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
I'm Stephen Payton. I live at 2567 North Hillfield Road. It's Valley View Homeowners, Inc. I've lived there since 2006. I lived in Utah for 30 years. This is my third March. Those 30 years since March. When I moved into Valley View, we all owned shares in our corporation, and so we co-own the land that we're sitting on. And so when I bought into there, I traced my shares all the way back to the title before I moved in and saw that everything looked right. I recently tried to do the same, and things aren't right. And so as I started digging into these things, there were some issues that have kind of interrupted my paper trail to my shares.
When you're talking shares, are you saying in particular water or land? Right here. Because if you're speaking water, we are actually going to have a public hearing here in a minute.
Okay, no, well, so this is the land.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to
And
clarify.
the water, but the land primarily.
Okay.
I know we have a certain share with the water too. But there was something posted on a neighboring property of ours, and that's why I'm here. And that property is 2535 North Hillfield Road. And they plan on changing from CP1 plan neighborhood to MU, mixed use. And I would like to remind
Okay, I don't want to interrupt you, but we actually have that as an agenda item, and we'll be glad to let you speak later on that topic if you want. Right now, it's more of general
open.
ideas. Yeah, open to general that's not on the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have a copy of the agenda. So,
Oh, okay.
Okay, so then the other thing I would like to bring up is the water. And having come from California and the water thingy, you know, I came from the Central Valley and we lost our water and went through all some of the things that were going on. The thing that actually was the selling point for us Californians moving here was, hey, Utah, we have the water and we have the water rights. I don't know what happened to it, but one of the concerns I have, similar, you know, having a green enough property is good for our health, but also having enough runoff going into the lake might actually be more important for our health because there's lots of chemicals and things that blow up and catch the air and everything. And we might be fortunate enough to be north of the big problem. And so that would be the other thing. And I look forward to the agenda item. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to speak on a topic that's not on the agenda? Okay. If not, I'll go ahead and proceed. I do want to bring your attention to the fact that we did have one item on our consent item, which we've decided we had to pull it due to some information that we still needed. So we'll put that on a future agenda. And so I'll go ahead and go down then to our public comments. And once again, I'm going to exercise the authority of the mayor's chair to be able to shuffle the deck here. I know that we have 3 public hearings here. So what I'd like to do is take item number A, which is our budget proposal, and shift that down to the bottom of the agenda. So I'm going to start out with the rezone request, which is exactly what Mr. Payton was speaking about. And in order to start that, I'm going to call up Chad. Mr. Chad Wilkinson, who is our Community and Economic Director, and he's going to run through the details on that before we open up our public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The first item here tonight is, as was stated, is a rezone application. I'm going to go to that just a few slides to give some background on that. It is a rezone at 2535 North Hillfield Road. The proposal is to take that property from CP1, which is a commercial zone, to mixed use, MU as the designation for that zone. The property shown there on the map with the red star, that's again 2535 North Hillfield Road, about just a little bit under an acre, 0.83. Here's an aerial photo with the zoning, the current zoning overlaid. You can kind of see through that aerial photo that this is the existing property. To the north, it has also commercial zoning. This is where the existing Alpha Graphics use is. Over to the west, we've got some residential. I think this is the area where this gentleman resides. We've got some single-family zoning to the south, and then some multifamily zoning directly across Hillfield Road to the east with, again, this RMH, which is our residential mobile home zone, kind of surrounding to the west and east there. Just, again, showing an aerial photo, you can see the existing building on the property. It's been a variety of different uses over the years. One of those is a commercial or a contractor type use. There's some storage that's been placed in the back of the property along with some other uses over the years. Excuse me. Just want to talk briefly about the general plan. So this property is general planned along a mixed-use corridor. That's what this cross-hatched area is. This is an area designated in our 2019 general plan that's appropriate for a mix of uses. That mixed-use corridor anticipates not only commercial but also residential use that would be developed along that corridor area along Hillfield Road. The reason that area was chosen as one of those mixed-use corridors is that it meets a number of factors that are important to support that type of mixed-use corridor. First of all, it's along a major transit route. There's a bus route that runs right along Hillfield Road. Secondly, it's along one of our major arterial streets. So this mixed-use zoning provides a transition from the busy arterial street to some of those less intensive uses to the west and to the southwest of this property. So this particular proposal would be to change the zoning again from CP1, current CP1, to a mixed-use zone in anticipation of construction of some multifamily apartment-type uses on the property. The Planning Commission did review this at their previous meeting. The recommendation from the Planning Commission was a positive recommendation to approve this change from CP1 to MU based on compliance with the general plan for this area. And so staff would also share that recommendation. We recommend that the council approve ordinance or adopt ordinance 22-05, approving the rezone request from CP1 to MU. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if I can.
Okay, council, do you have any questions before we open it up to the public? Okay, if there's no questions, then on your behalf, I would need a motion to open a public hearing.
I move that we open the public hearing for this discussion item.
Okay, it's been moved in second. So the floor is now yours. As far as the public, you're welcome to comment regarding item number B on our agenda, which is a rezone request. And once again, you can step up to the mic on either side of the podium. And if you could state your name, please do not give us your phone number. But if it does require your phone number, we'd ask that you give it to our recorder in private. And the time is now yours. We do ask that if you're speaking on behalf of a group, you can take a little bit more time. But if it's individually, then we ask that if you could, keep your comments to right around 3 minutes, but I won't hold you to it. So the floor is now yours.
I think something fell off of this microphone, but you can still hear, I believe. My name is Phil Holland with the Holland Group. I don't want to be redundant and cover a lot of the good things that Chad explained. I want to maybe just state that from time to time, land uses change and they become obsolete. And the life of this property, it was probably obsolete years and years and years ago. And so we are finding it currently to say, what is the best use for this piece? We're consistent with the general plan, calling it mixed use, and want to move forward with that. We're excited about its location and proximity to shopping, to some of the major employers in the state, schools. So we're excited to move forward, and I'm the applicant, glad to answer any questions. Maybe after you get a couple of comments, if you have any questions, you can ask those. But I'm here for that. Thanks.
Thank you for being here.
Found it.
I'm all for improvements and change. My issue is how do we provide oversight on the for instance, how does that zoning compare to what's behind them? I don't know if we're CP1 or not. I didn't hear on that side. Do we know what behind that property is? Is that it? Because we're like, I don't think we're mixed use. We're residential, right? High density residential or something like that.
When you say behind, are you talking about the property to the west here?
Pretty much where the bubble is.
Well, yes, that's RMH. That's a residential mobile home zone.
Okay, yeah, and that would be us. I'm trying to figure out the best way to, I'm sorry, I just hadn't time to figure this out. So do you own the property, or you're the developer, right? Is that what you're saying?
And are you fine with him coming up, or do you want to answer that?
I can answer. This is our developer. Do you own the property now, Phil? Okay, so potential developer of the property. Yep.
Okay. And that's fine. Is there someone I can talk to offline? Because there is an issue that it's kind of delicate, you know? Maybe I don't think it'd be something we want to discuss in public necessarily. So who would I talk to in that regard?
I'm happy to stay after this meeting and talk to you if you like.
Yeah, my what I came here to do, I don't want to stop anything, but there's a legal issue that I need enough time to have them look at something, and it does affect our shares on our property and our members. And it gets down to this: my neighbor across the street was ill in health. I like to help my neighbors, and I said, "Well, gee, we have these shares that are tied to our property. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to create some kind of leverage and help her fix her roof and do all this kind of stuff." But then in the process of doing that, I found out, oh, wait a minute, someone's already done this. And so there's a thing going on, and it does involve neighboring properties. And so it gets kind of confusing.
So you're talking boundary lines.
Yeah, it's like they'll change the boundary line, and our serial number would change, and then SBA loans would be taken out and mixed in with our property. And then now I'm like, well, I can't secure any loan for my neighbor because these loans came from somewhere, and I don't know where that money went, you know? And so, and I don't know, and then when someone found out about it, they told me to destroy all my documents, and I talked to the lawyer, and he says, don't destroy anything and don't sign anything, and I'm just kind of confused. And so I'm hoping that asking the council to maybe give me a little time to sort some stuff out, because I just found out about this. I just had a lawyer refer which proper lawyer I need to address certain issues that are going on. And I don't know. So I'd probably try to ask for time, but I don't know what kind of schedule you're on, and I don't want to interfere with things if I can avoid it. But if there's a possibility for me to figure out a few things, that'd be great. And that's kind of all I wanted to say.
Okay, well, thank you for your time. And obviously you have the right gentleman here tonight to be able to talk to that. Okay. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this topic?
Hi, my name's Jaron Hale. I'm the owner of the Alpha Graphics next door to the project that you guys are deciding on. I don't know what the plan is for the development, but in mixed use, I guess that's commercial plus residential. The only concern I have, and I'm for new neighbors, but there's, I don't, if the developer could address the issue with access to the property. When I developed my parcel, the state made me deed a certain chunk of that property so that all future access to that property would have to go through our current approach into both properties from that one approach. So I don't know how that's going. If he could address that and fill you guys in on how that is. I'm fully aware of that access. I had to deed that property to the state. So I don't know. I'd like to see kind of the plan there. and if they've talked to the state or not. I was here at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and they talked about putting a median in and things like that. And I'd just like to find out how that's going and just a little more info so that, because a median going down the middle of Hillfield in that intersection would be detrimental to people accessing our business, and obviously their business, future business, if that's what it becomes. So anyway, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, anyone else? Chad, would you?
Mr. Holland, address that.
Okay, sure. Mr. Holland, if you wouldn't mind address that for us.
Yeah, thank you. We have had an application meeting with the Department of Transportation. Originally, when Alpha Graphics was approved for access onto Hillfield Road, which is a Udot right-of-way, that access, are you guys looking at the same thing I am?
Mm-hmm.
That access matches up perfectly across the street. And so they are giving both of these properties one access. There's currently a cross-access easement on the Alpha Graphics, which allows the property in question today that access. The talk of median came in when I posed the question to Udot, if we provided another access, which could be limited, right in, right out, what would take place? And that was when the idea of a median from 2475 all the way up to that access point. And so I don't believe that we would do that. I think that the access would come as Udot intended it through Alpha Graphics. Hopefully that answered his question.
Okay. Council, does anybody have some questions on this?
Sure. I have questions. So it was my understanding from the discussion during the work meeting that Alpha Graphics was aware of this
Access.
entrance, this access way. And it's sounding as though Mr. Hale is not aware of that. So can someone please address that? I mean, the discrepancy between the current owner of the business, Alpha Graphics, and the future potential owner, because it was my understanding that there was an agreement and that was okay.
Yeah. And I don't want to speak for him. There he is right there. But I think when he said that he gave property to Udot, I believe that that's probably what he was talking about. There is a cross-access easement recorded on his property that allows access into this parcel that we're talking about today. And I believe he's aware of that.
I mentioned that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Councilman Bloxham? Oh, okay.
Chad, with that, so the decision on the access point, is there a development agreement that's, if I don't have my iPad with me, but was there a development agreement that's going to follow this?
There's no development agreement. This will be approved by the Department of Transportation, though, and they have taken steps to put together a shared access there with the development of Alpha Graphics. There's an existing easement.
Yeah.
They will be held to whatever access management plan that UDOT's been really kind of creating in that parcel for a long time, since Alpha Graphics was put in.
Because the developer said that if they were to want to explore that, then that would bring that access, that access point, the median would come into fruition, basically, if they wanted to do that. So it sounded like to me that the decision is based on what the developer wants to do with their site plan. And that means that Alpha Graphics would basically have to just hope that the developer doesn't want a second access point. Is that right?
That's probably a question for Udot, but my understanding in our brief conversations with them is that this is what they've been planning all along, is that shared access for both of them. I don't know that they'd given other access when they have, and Steve may want to chime in on this, but usually when they have created a situation like this with the shared access, their intention is that is the access. They don't in that case generally give out additional access points when they've created a shared access like this. Do you want to add to that at all?
Sure, they'll stick to their guns on this. I've been through this process and they don't budge.
I'm getting the head nod from their city engineer as well. So,
okay.
Yep.
I guess my question was if the developer wanted a second access point.
No, what I'm saying is the UDOT, because they've created the shared access, our experience is they will require this to be the access.
Okay. Even if the developer wanted a second access, UDOT's going to say no.
I can't speak for them, but that's been our experience.
Okay. Yep. Obviously we want to make sure that Alpha Graphics isn't negatively affected by a zone change, that they don't have the ability to decide on the site plan. So it's basically completely out of their hands when they would experience a negative effect on their business by people not being able to turn west into their property. So
that hasn't been our experience with these kind of shared accesses.
Any other questions?
Do we have a time frame of when you expect to hear back from UDOT? That's probably to the developer.
I'll let him chime in, but they'll have to go through a permit process for their access point. Whenever there's a change of use like this, they have to go through UDOT's access management through their permit staff to get a permit for the access point. And that'll be sometime, what we're talking about tonight is the zone change, which that's not, we don't talk about the specifics of the development plan at this point, but eventually they will come for a development plan that'll have to be approved by UDOT. The access will have to be approved by UDOT as well. So I don't have a time. Maybe Phil might be able to give you a little more timing on that.
Well, and I understand your point. The question I'm posing is, I know that this is a zone change and that is a development plan which is down the road, but the developer's already talking to UDOT. So if you have some type of time frame for when they should respond to you, that would be awesome right now.
Yeah. So when we go into site plan, if we get a rezone, it's probably 3 or 4 months by the time UDOT says yes or no. And really, so let me be clear on what we're talking about, because the median, if you can see the 2 driveways on my property, or I don't own it, the owner's here, by the way, the 2 access points, that bottom one would be what we entertained. Would be a right in, right out, just for flow. And really, it's for the fire department. Fire department said, it's okay if you have it, but you don't have to have it. So that eliminated the entire conversation of a second access. But if UDOT said, yeah, we'd like you to have one, the median would not block Alpha Graphics. It would go all the way from 2475 up to that right in, right out. But I can tell you, I'm not going to try to get that. UDOT has already, I don't need approval from UDOT because the access exists already. So when I said 3 or 4 months, that's for them just to say, yeah, we're okay with what you're doing. I'm eliminating 2 accesses, which gives me brownie points for them, and holding fast to the Alpha Graphics access, which is by right already established. So hopefully that gave you a little bit, but yeah, I don't think we'll have a second access. I certainly won't be trying to get it. I know the city probably doesn't want it, and UDOT certainly doesn't want it.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Okay, is there any other comments? If not, I'll look for a motion to close. Oh, excuse me, Councilman Roberts.
Before we do, I'd like to explain my vote, Mayor. I'll be voting no for this. I hold some of the same concerns that some of the planning commissioners did in their discussion. And Chad, I appreciate the discussion in the work meeting that we had. But my reason to vote no is this is a major retail, major commercial arterial road in our state. I agree with the housing element. I have no problem with the high density housing that close to the base, because I know we need to add housing in this area. But I just have concerns with the mixed use zone because I believe when the general plan was adopted that this would be mixed use on most properties. And I would like to see that, whether it's changing the mixed use ordinance. But for that reason, I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Okay. Council, if you don't have any other questions, I would entertain a motion that we close this public hearing and take action on ordinance 22-05.
I move that we close the public hearing on this rezone.
Okay. The public hearing is now closed. So now I'll need to entertain a motion as far as either acceptance of the proposed rezone request for 2335 North Hillfield Road from oh, yeah, you're right. I heard that. Thank you. There was not. So it's brought to my attention that I did not accept a second on closing the public hearing. So council, I need a second. No, good catch, Kim. Okay, Councilman Robert will second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll now proceed. So rather than me read this, I'm going to ask a council member, would you please take action on item B of our public hearing? You can. Speak into the mic, though.
I'm going to vote, excuse me. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the rezone request at 2535 North Hillfield Road as listed under Public Hearings B. Ordinance 22-05.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Being that it's a public hearing, I'll take a roll call vote on this. So I'll start out with Councilmember Bettina Smith Edmondson.
I'll vote yes, but I would like to add that is because I agree with the need for the density housing and also with the mixed use is the purpose is to be able to mix that use across that area. So not necessarily having to be in one location. And also because the gentleman, Mr. Hale, seems to be okay with the one access.
Okay. Councilman Roberts?
Nay.
Okay. Councilman Bloxham?
Aye.
Councilman Thomas?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Okay. There you have it. The vote's 4-1. Thank you, Council. And we'll then go ahead and go on to item number C, which is another rezone request. And since that I'm handling these individually, Chad, go ahead and present the information, then we'll open up the public hearing again.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Mayor, Council. This is another request for a rezone. This is ordinance 22-06, considering rezone from BRP to CP3, 748 West Heritage Park Boulevard. The location of the property is shown on the map with the red star showing the approximate location. We'll get a little closer with an aerial photo. You may be familiar with this building. This is where the existing Roosters restaurant is located. You can see surrounding land uses. Well, first of all, the streets, just to orient you, here's Heritage Park Boulevard. Leighton Hills Drive is right here. Across the street to the east, there's some single-family residential zoning, R18. For the most part, though, this is predominantly surrounded by similar zoning, BRP. There's some CP3 to the south, just separated by one property. Some CP3 to the west. So all kind of within the same general commercial type of a zone. The purpose for this rezone request is that the Roosters would like to include a bar as part of their use. We have looked at this request. The BRP does not allow for bars. That's the real reason for the CP3 zoning, is just to provide a zone that would allow for a bar. The location is compliant with all of our, first of all, with the general plan. The general plan calls for a number of different types of commercial uses. It's our urban district general plan. It's one of our higher density zoning districts, not just residential, but commercial densities and use. So that's the property shown in our general plan. It's also compliant with all the spacing criteria, locational criteria in state and local code for a bar use. So based on that, and based on analysis of the general plan, staff is recommending approval. The Planning Commission also reviewed this rezone request and unanimously recommended approval of this rezone from BRP to CP3. And we would do the same, requesting that you adopt ordinance 22-06, I think. Did I get that right? Yeah, 06. Excuse me. I think I didn't get that number right.
It is. You said it right.
Thank you. I can't see that on my screen right now. Thank you. 06.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions before we open this back up? Okay. Go ahead, Councilman Thomas.
Is the bar, it seems like is it outside too? Like, can you serve, I don't know, whatever beer outside?
They're going to have a little addition that they're building as part of this.
Yeah,
so certainly that would be part of
like
that.
An open area.
Yeah, let it outside.
Tables or whatever.
That's right.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. I'm going to ask our attorney, do I need to reopen this up since we closed the other one, right? So I do need to have action then to open up our public hearing on rezone request for ordinance 22-06.
I move that we open the public hearing for rezone request for ordinance 22-06.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. This is now a public hearing, so anyone in the audience or would like to speak regarding this particular item, please do so. If we ask that you state your name.
My name is Garrett Goff. I work with Garn Development, and we own the building here. Roosters has been a tenant of ours for over 15 years, I think 17 years. And we used to own and operate the Corbins that was there, so we're very familiar with the space. Roosters came to us with the idea of having all of the Corbin space isn't going to be a bar. Some of it's going to be event space that they've done. So it's an expansion of Roosters almost. It's actually a part of Roosters. And then the bar side is, it's more of a 21 and older restaurant, and I can let Nathan speak to it. It's going to have a little bit more of a sophisticated menu. There will be drink options as well. But if you guys have a chance to stop by and see it, the construction is going fantastic. They've done an outstanding job. And we as the building owners are thrilled to have them. And I can answer any of your guys' questions that you have for me in the interim. Or if you want, we can ask Nathan any of the questions about the specifics. Any questions for me?
Anyone have any questions here?
I just have one question.
Okay.
Since some construction has already been done, is that construction that's been done necessary for the rezone? Like, was it done prior to the, okay.
So in the event that the rezone wouldn't happen, it would be an expansion of a restaurant. But they started the construction with us, and then the liquor license and things came up, so they needed to have the rezone. So that's why we addressed that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm the reason for the rezone is to be able for a liquor license. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, council members.
Yeah. Is there any other comments?
I'd like one.
Just regarding this topic, please.
Yes, that's it. With you. Give me an estimated time and date of when Roosters will be open here. Your turn.
Hello, my name is Nathan Leighton, 584 North, 3200 West, and I'm the Director of Operations over Roosters Brewing Company. To clarify the question, so there is we're calling it our indoor patio. The addition onto the building that we are adding is actually an enclosed all glass indoor patio that will be on the bar. So the bar business will not be outside. And then we also want to, we also have the patio on the back, and that will remain Roosters Restaurant, which is for all ages. And then we'll have an event space as well. So.
Well, good. I can say, I'm just going to make my own personal observation and comment here. I know that this is certainly a hot spot for tourism and folks that come in from out of state as well as within state. And this area really, I think, lends to this type of activity here. And quite honestly, I want to say thank you to Roosters, because Roosters has been a great partner at the Davis Arts Council and helping providing meals there as well. And it's great company. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, council, I'll bring it back to you to take action here. You'd need to close your public hearing and make a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing and approve the rezone request 748 West Heritage Park Boulevard from Business and Research Park to CP3 Planned Regional Commercial Ordinance 22-06.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we approve the rezone request. Once again, I'll take a roll call vote on this. I'll start out with Councilman Bloxham.
Aye.
Councilman Roberts.
Aye.
Councilman Bettina Smith Edmonton.
Aye.
I have to say it all the way in order to get it out. Councilman Thomas.
Aye.
And Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Okay, there you have it. It's unanimous. Okay, that concludes the two business items. Well, all of them are business items, but at least the ones that were here for that, you're welcome to stay, or you can go. And that, which is the reason why I shuffled the deck here, because now we'll move on to item number A, which is a public hearing regarding our proposed budget for the fiscal year of 22-23. So before we start this public hearing, we're going to have a pretty good in-depth presentation on it. Mr. Tracy Probert, our finance director, is going to give us some information, and I believe he's going to have some assistance here so that we can kind of help also educate our citizens as far as some of the proposals that are being presented here tonight. So, Tracy?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. So tonight we're holding a public hearing on the budget, and as part of that, it will include discussion of the water rate increase. As far as the budget goes, the proposed budget tonight, we take public comment just so you have a timeline. Then from the 3rd, which is tomorrow, until the 15th, the council has time to consider those public comments or concerns, any review, discussion with council, and any adjustments that may be needed to the budget. And then it's proposed that on June 16th, we adopt the final budget so that we can meet state deadlines as far as adopting a budget. This budget proposes a general fund of just over $51 million, total citywide budget just over $132 million. Included in that are cost of living and merit adjustments for employees, just over $2.8 million in capital equipment, over $30 million in capital projects, which includes projects in all of the utilities, water, stormwater, sewer, and streets projects, parks projects, dispatch center related project. Some of those other major projects that I've listed here just for information, 2700 West from Gentile to Hillfield. That's a major project that not only incorporates streets, but all of the utilities. Millions of dollars poured into that project. And Ellison and Commons Park shop facilities, those have been long awaited, and there's a significant amount of funding for those facilities in this budget. And also the Gordon Avenue secondary water trunk line. So I've only pointed out 3 of the major projects, but they were the 3 largest projects in the list of projects that we reviewed previously. One of the purposes tonight, we adopted the tentative budget on May 5th. And before we hold a public hearing, we need to review things that have changed. And so one of those things that changed is the proposal for water rate increases. Another item that changed is the proposal to build a new 911 dispatch center. And then there's been some market-based wage adjustments. We aren't going to discuss the details of those, but some of the wages that have been proposed previously have changed in the final budget. So as we talk about the first item, the proposed water rate increase, it's important for everyone to understand that in 2017, a water master plan was adopted and a water rate study was performed, and that rate study was also adopted as part of the plan. And that plan included some rate increases. One was 35%, one was 20%. Those occurred in 2018 and 19. And then along came the pandemic, right? And that interrupted our plan as far as being able to increase rates. And the council unanimously decided back then that it just wasn't the right time to do that because of everything that we could potentially be facing with this pandemic in the early stages of, in the early months of 2020. So that third increase was foregone. In combination with that, we now experience extreme levels of inflation. So we have inflation pressure in compensation, operational supplies, other forms of operation expense, and particularly in capital projects, which at this point, as of today, some of those projects are up to 30% over their original estimates. We also want to, another reason for this rate increase is to help maintain our top-rated Class A system. Now, that doesn't mean that we have a gold-plated system or some kind of a, what might be referred to as a Cadillac system, right? In other words, an excessive system. What we have is a system that provides safe, quality drinking water in a dependable manner with great consistency, and thus the state has rated it as a top-tier Class A system. And as a city, we need to maintain that. As residents, I'm sure they want us to maintain that, right? Everybody wants to be able to depend on water. And if our public works director was here, he would say, if you don't have water and you don't have a system, you don't have a city, right? So I always like to quote him. He has good quotes. But on top of that, we've talked tonight already about drought and conservation efforts. And the city, if our engineer pipes in on this, he would have to say that the city's done an excellent job of being very compliant, addressing the mayor's challenge last summer, cutting way back, being all on board for doing our part. The city, the businesses, especially the residents, have done their part to do that. And another small reason for a rate increase has to do with that conservation. It affects the amount of revenue that comes in. The original model planned on conservation because of a tiered rate structure, but it didn't plan on conservation during an extreme drought. And so that does have an effect on revenue. I'm going to turn some time over to City Engineer Steve Jackson to talk a little bit about the system itself.
Thank you, Tracy. So as part of this master plan that was completed and adopted in 2017, it's a critical component to operating and maintaining the system. It looks at a comprehensive analysis of our water system, the existing system, the way it stands today, so that all existing users are provided the water in the sustainable and effective quality manner that we have. But it also looks at supply and demand projections going forward. And as Tracy mentioned, it did take into account some conservation. It took into account growth in the city as our population continues to expand. And then it also looks at the age of the system and how much money we should be putting into maintenance and rehabilitation of those system components that we have. The peak supply and demand projections are also taken into account so that everybody that needs their water when they need it can get it. We don't like to see major drops in pressure or volumes during those peak time demands. But then it also looks at the distribution system and how we move that water throughout the system. We have over 20,000 connections that we provide water for every single day. And it takes a lot of pipes and a lot of components to do that. And then it also recommends system improvements, not only system improvements for future growth, but also system improvements to help keep the system as existing, sustainable and functional. And out of that master plan evaluation, we received a 10-year capital facilities plan, which outlines a lot of these projects that we're trying to get completed, as well as an impact fee analysis for new development and new growth to pay their proportional share of the costs of this system as it expands, and then the rate study, as we've mentioned. So some statistics of our system. It is not a simple system. It is one of the biggest systems in the state. 300 miles of pipe ranging anywhere from 4 to 24 inches, 3,300 hydrants, 3,600 valves, or 7,300 valves, 20,000 plus meters that are servicing all of the residents, all of the population every day of Leighton City. 15 major storage tanks, over 23 million gallons of water is stored in those, with 9 pump stations, 5 deep water wells that we own and operate ourselves, which helps keep our costs down compared to having to purchase all of the water on the wholesale market. We do have 7 Weber Basin connections that provide almost 15,000 gallons of water per minute during those peak day demands. And then we have 51 pressure reducing valves that operate 20 different pressure zones throughout the city. Overall, when the master plan was completed, that estimated cost of the replacement value of our system is $265 million. So it's an incredible investment that the citizens have made into their system. And it's, like Tracy mentioned, it is the most important utility that we have because everything relies on this system. As we continue forward, looking in the 5-year capital improvement plan, we have quite a few capital projects for conveyance of water through the culinary and secondary systems, almost $29 million that need to be taken into account. A lot of those are main trunk lines that was mentioned, the Gordon Avenue secondary water trunk line that will help provide water out into the west area of Leighton. We have some storage reservoir projects, pump and well projects that are also substantial in cost, but they are the lifeblood of the system. Without those pumps and wells, it's impossible to move the water where it needs to go. We have meter installation and replacement projects. This includes the installation of meters and secondary water throughout the city, which will help with the conservation efforts that we have. It will also help educate people who use the secondary system as to how much they're using. We find that a lot of people that waste water don't understand that they're wasting the water because they don't have a way to measure it. And it's a really effective tool. That's why the state has put in $250 million this last legislative session to try and help get these meters installed and put in place. We have SCADA upgrades, which is our telemetry, which helps us operate the system, as well as some major operations and equipment projects like large capital equipment that we need to operate the system. So in total, we have $50 million worth of capital improvement projects that need to get completed. We've looked at this. We've tried to stretch that out to make sure we're not accelerating projects unnecessarily, but we also need to meet the demands and the sustainability of the system. As we look at water use, this is a source from the Utah Rivers Council. We have a lot of questions about agricultural use outdoors versus municipal industrial use, which is that M&I water shown on the screen. It's true. The agricultural users use a lot of water in this state, but they also produce a lot of product and they own water rights. And the state law for water rights is there are priority rights that people have, and it's first in time, first in right, which means if you were a water right holder first, then the water that is available is yours first. And the agricultural community does their best to try and be efficient. I know there's a lot of people who say, well, they're not doing their part. They are doing their part. There are numerous examples of people in the agricultural community trying to conserve water. They've been cutting back water multiple years in a row now just to try and save the water and put it to use and spread it out as far as we can get it to go. The municipal side of things, 75% of the water is outdoor water. That's a big chunk of the water that is, even though it's 15% of the total water use, it's an allotment that we have. As a city, we own a certain amount of water allotment and the citizens are able to use that. We want to make sure that we're putting it to the most effective use that we can. So as we look forward at what's going on, we require new development to bring in water shares into the system. They don't just come onto the system and take what's existing, source for the citizens that are already here. They have to bring in their own water, which means most of the time it's a conversion from the agricultural water that was already being used on the land into this M&I water purpose. It doesn't take away those existing rights, but it supplements and brings those into the city for us to deliver this water through the multiple systems that we have. Residential developments typically use much less water than the agricultural flood irrigation. That's mostly because we put more hard surface down. When we build developments, the homes don't need to be watered on their roofs, obviously, and their driveways. And so we try to limit that as much as possible. And so we see a reduction in the water that's being used there. Multifamily and townhome developments use far less water simply because they have a lot less outdoor water use because of the landscaping. They do put more units on the site typically, but we see that there is a reduction there. Leighton recently adopted new standards for Waterwise landscaping. This is a requirement for all commercial and PRUD and multifamily projects. To implement this, this Waterwise landscaping requirement. Now, a lot of them have embraced it on their own. They want to do it because it's the responsible thing to do. As we see them implement those Waterwise landscapings, we're seeing that it's actually beautifying the community as well, but they're doing their part to make sure that they're not wasting the water outdoors or overusing. We do have a lot of people who call and when they notice somebody that they think is overusing, the Public Works Department is out responding to those daily, weekly. We receive multiple calls and we're trying to help educate and help encourage people to be wise with their water usage. Nobody wants to be in this situation with the water restrictions that we have, but we're all trying to do our part. Even the city, from a Parks Department standpoint, they're actually evaluating every parcel that the city owns and waters. They're taking a look and they're saying there's certain parks that need to have water on the fields because we have soccer games, we have other recreational events that need to have that water. But then in other parts of the park, they're cutting off the water completely. Some of them are going no water. Some of them are going down to just the minimal amount of water that is needed to keep the grass alive so that when this temporary drought condition is gone, we can, bring those landscapes back. So we're working very closely with the Parks Department, watching the water use. They're doing the most that they can. They've switched a lot of their systems over to smart meters, smart controllers to try and help with that. We do have a housing shortage. So we're trying to balance the need for people to live and want to be in the community with the amount of water use that we can allow right now during this temporary conservation time. State law is now required as of this last legislative session that we meter every single connection in the city by 2029 for secondary water. That will be a huge asset to be able to help manage and help people understand the water needs that they have. And then ultimately, we do have property owners that have the right to develop the property based on the general plan. And if they meet the requirements by providing water through the various different sources that are out there, then as the council, you guys make the decision as to how that is allowed to occur. I think the real key here is that everybody's doing our part. We delivered 4.1 billion gallons of water last year during the drought. We anticipate that we'll be able to do that again. We're watching closely with all of the water resources that are out there as we've seen the runoffs come off the mountains. We're evaluating those with our partners at Weber Basin and all of the secondary water systems to see what we can do to try and make this water last and then pray for more water next year. I mean, that's we got to play the hand we're dealt, I guess is the easiest way to say it. So I'll turn it back to Tracy to talk a little bit more about the financial projections.
So on the financial side, are there any questions to this point, Council? We just continue until we do the public hearing. So as part of the master plan, there was a financial coverage projection, and you can see here that, at the time that the master plan was adopted, our rates were bringing in an amount of revenue equal to this gray line. And you can see that operations, maintenance, and capital project needs far exceeded that. And that was the reason for those original rate increases. And as we come to you as part of this budget with a proposal to increase rates, that's the same situation that we're in. We have a need to maintain the system, maintain sufficient revenues for operations to cover our costs. We have inflating costs at fairly extreme levels, and we have conservation, right? As we look forward in the models, I wouldn't anticipate, I think that as people learn that they can use less water, I don't think they're going to go back to where they were. I mean, they'll come back, as the gentleman mentioned earlier, they're going to put an amount that their landscape needs, but they're not going to use excessive amounts because they realize that they don't need to. And all of those things, but more particularly the cost increases, lead us to the determination that we need a rate increase. So as we look at these rates that are proposed, it's proposed to take, when we talk about a meter size that's up to 3/4 of an inch, that pretty much encompasses all residential users. There are a few residential users that have a meter a little bit larger than that. But as we look at meters from 1 inch to 8 inches, those are commercial, schools, and manufacturing industrial. 8-inch is obviously the manufacturing industrial and so forth. But in all of those categories, so everyone is affected, not just residential users, the base rate is going up. For residential users, from $20.80 to $23.90, and an equivalent percentage increase for all other meter sizes as far as base rate is concerned. When we talk about excess consumption, so if you have access to secondary water, then it's assumed that you will use the secondary water because, for outdoor landscapes, that's the appropriate use. And so there's a different excess consumption rate scale for those people versus those without access to secondary water. And so we can see that in the first tier, that goes from $1.85 to $2.13. In the second tier, for those with access to secondary water, it was proposed to increase that a little bit more, because when we ran the numbers, it would appear that most people with access to secondary water actually stay within the base amount from 0 to 6,000. There's really not much of a need to go above that. And so that tier is a little more punitive, I guess we could use the word. I don't know if that's the appropriate word or not, but it's meant to force people to conserve at that level. The same thing happens with those without access to secondary water. In these first two tiers are up to 45,000 gallons. The increase is at one level from $1.85 to $2.13 and $2.31 to $2.66. In these top two levels from 46,000 and above, the percentage increase is higher. And again, that's meant to keep people, or to help people to conserve based on the rates. And just to review, a couple of meetings ago, we talked all about that conservation, how it's affected the tiers, and were these rates that were established affecting that? And they've had a great effect on that. People have recognized that they don't need as much water. They're more conscientious of how much they're using. And a lot of that has to do with how much they have to pay for the water. Commercial, churches and schools, which have separate rate categories, their excess usages are also increasing from 205 to 236 and 228 to 262. At least that's what's being proposed as part of this budget. So how do we compare to those around us? Because in my office in the finance, we also handle utility billing, and we receive a lot of calls, and maybe you have, that we are the most expensive. We have the highest rates anywhere, basically. I've heard that to around here to the neighboring cities. So I went out and looked at that, and if we compare the base rates and excess charges up to 10,000 gallons, because our base rate for someone that does not have access to secondary water, they're allowed 10,000 gallons. So I wanted to compare apples to apples. We fall almost at the bottom. Without this proposed rate increase, we are at the bottom. We're at 2080. The next closest is 2150. Now, our city manager would support this wholly, and he's stated it many times. We don't propose rate increases, and we don't set our rates based on what everyone else is doing. Our city engineers explained that our system is far more complex than most any one of these systems listed here. Orem, Ogden, they have similarly complex systems, but because of a long history of planning and proper budgeting and proper rate increases at the proper time, we're able to maintain some of the lowest rates, not only in Davis County, but throughout all of the areas where cities are similar to our size. And so that's something that actually we could be very proud of, that even with this rate increase, we're still one of the lowest rates in the area. It's also important to note that if you went out on the website, so if some citizens were to do that, the base rate in some of these cities is actually lower than our base rate, but you don't get any water for that base rate. So the new model, which we haven't adopted yet, maybe in our next rate study, maybe we'll stick with this one, but the new model for most of these cities is we charge you a base rate and you get zero water with that base rate. Then we charge you per 1,000 after that. So that's what I've equated in here is the equivalent of 10,000 gallons across all of these cities. hopefully that will help people understand where we sit as far as our rate for 10,000 gallons of water. How does that affect the monthly utility rate with this proposed increase? Water would go from $20.80 on a standard 3/4 inch connection for a residential user. It would increase $3.10 to $23.90. So a minimum bill, including all of the different utilities and only one garbage can, would go from $75.50 to $78.60. It may be important to note just briefly in this meeting that there were discussions with Waste Management as well, as their costs have increased significantly across all types of categories, from steel to employees to fuel, in every aspect. And there was potentially a proposal to increase the rate for our refuse service in this year. But as we reviewed, again, with good planning, we feel like we have the sufficient reserves to not increase that rate as well in this current year. And in that way, kind of alleviate some of the rate pressure for the users to not have to increase multiple rates across the schedule. So that's pretty much what I have, what we have, I should say, about water and utility rates. I'll briefly discuss the other item, and that is the proposition to build a 911 dispatch center. Currently, the police department, they've outgrown their current space. They're able to function in it, but it's very tight, especially in the dispatch area, and it's been that way in the dispatch area for some time. There's grant funding available to cover approximately 90% of the cost of this project. There's also impact fees available and money that the city has set aside long ago for a potential public safety building. What the construction of this building does under this situation is it allows us to extend the useful life of the current police facility. It opens up a significant amount of space so that the other police operations can expand into that area, and then it provides a more adequate space for 911 dispatch and records. And the last thing that it does is it helps us avoid, for the time being, and probably for a significant amount of time into the future, bonding and an associated tax increase that would come with a new police facility. So for that reason, I know we've discussed before recommending this project as part of the budget. With that, that's our kind of short presentation. And so I guess I would just recommend that we open a public hearing and take public comment related to the budget.
Very good. Okay, who's going to make that motion?
I move that we open the public hearing to discuss the budget.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, very good. So this is now the time that we'll accept public comments regarding the proposed budget. So if anyone wishes to speak in that, you're welcome to come up to either side of the podium again and state your name.
Did you miss me? No. Dawn Fitzpatrick. I don't envy you. Remember sitting in this position 2 years ago as COVID was hitting, and especially the two new ones, budgets are like freaked out. And so I really kind of feel sorry for you guys to be in this position. So I have mixed feelings about this water bill increase. I want to start out by saying, though, I appreciate my water. And I appreciate it a whole lot more than the amount I almost pay for putting out a half a can full of trash every week to the curb. That's where I think I have a hard time with that one. So 2 years ago we had COVID, and now we're faced with rising inflation. Gas has gone up 52 cents in the last month. A gallon of milk is more than doubled, and so has a dozen eggs in the last year. And we know what's happened to rent and housing costs. I live in a 55-plus community. Most of us, fortunately, are probably under the 6,000, and we are on secondary water, which is helpful. But I do worry about those in some of our areas of the city that are on fixed incomes. Even though $3 and whatever cents isn't a lot, you compound it on everything else that's gone on. I really worry about that. What I worry about is they're going to let their lawns go. And I agree with Mr. Cox. We really enjoy our yards, and the last thing we need to see is just dirt or weeds. I wonder if more emphasis could be put on some of the commercial. I do want to do a call out to Safe Harbor. Their new administrative building is 100% xeriscape. There's no grass at all in that facility, and it is wonderful looking. And there needs to be more encouragement immediately with our businesses. I see some businesses currently laying sod in the park strip, no less. What I really didn't fully see it, but Steve has kind of talked about it a little bit, was the increase in conservation. And you know that's my HARP number one. I would like to have seen budget in there, specifically line item for some incentives for people to be able to, not just Weber Basin, because some of us aren't customers of Weber Basin. Some of them don't want to follow the guidelines that Weber Basin is requiring, and there are other alternatives to proper landscaping other than what Weber Basin is requiring to make that flip the strip and other areas of grass that are not necessarily in the strip. I would love to have seen money budgeted in there for the city to take out all grass on all their park strips. A lot of cities are doing that. They're at least making that one. And the other thing I didn't see in there was a budget for enforcement of water violations. And I will raise my hand. I am one that has called the water department multiple times. And we still have an HOA along Leighton Parkway that is still watering 3 to 4 times a week. And it's watering the street better than it's watering their bushes. And then as far as the water meters, I'm glad to see that we're just within maybe 7 years of everybody getting metered. But I didn't see anything in there about them being monitored. We can put them in, but unless they're monitored and some access for homeowners to have access to that information is needed. I live in an area that has secondary water with no meters. And we're in a guess, and we've lost a lot of property and a lot of trees and a lot of grass last year trying to play the game of, are we watering enough? But we don't know because we simply don't know what we're doing. I know that the city received millions of dollars from COVID money that could have gone into infrastructure. And so I would hope that they could look at using some of that money for some of these improvements, which are desperately needed, and looking at some newly generated funds to increase some kind of fund for conservation. And the only other thing I have to say is I'm glad to see the employees have a market-based wage increase, or some of them do. But I'm hoping too that, and I didn't look real hard, but that one of my last things on the council was to provide the council with a market-based wage salary for our mayor. And I hope that that has been considered and been added into this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the topic?
Sorry, Council, to beat this dead water horse again. Just a couple of questions, though, that I have. And it kind of relates around, and it's water, of course, with me, but there's guidelines that have been posted by Weber Basin and Leighton City, and I think they're basically mirror images of one another. Is that right? Mm-hmm. My question would be, where did they come up with this so-called, these guidelines? You know, from my knowledge with Weber Basin, they haven't contacted anybody in the professional as far as, you know, the nursery, Utah Nursery Landscape Association, Utah State University, you know, the professionals. They haven't incorporated their opinions or their knowledge into these standards whatsoever. You know, and I'm going from my 45 years of doing this, but I can tell you that in certain soil conditions, you know, this baseline that they've established is not going to even keep certain landscapes alive. Turf, for one thing, needs a minimum of a ½ inch per week during the summer months. It'll go dormant and it won't look very good, but it will come back if it gets the ½ inch. Depends on your sprinkler system, I guess. But as far as, you know, 20 minutes for a pop-up and a mist or a spray type system, you're probably pretty close to a ½ inch. 40 minutes for an impact head, you're not getting close to a ½ inch. And 1 hour on a drip system that is maintained, the drippers on a drip system, the standard ones are 1 gallon per hour is all. Okay, so you're not going to keep trees or shrubs alive in Utah in the summer months with that. You're not even going to keep a lot of the perennials alive in Utah with that. So my recommendation is if they're going to start to set down these baselines, why don't they incorporate the decades of professional and scientific evidence, or people with the scientific knowledge out there? Why can't they be incorporated into this so that we can sustain some of our landscapes? Like I said, I asked you before, what's the value on your landscape in your backyard? Do you want it to see brown weeds, trees die, shrubs die? It's a big investment, and then it's a huge sacrifice to what we enjoy, as residents of Utah. And then one other quick question I just have, as the statistics were up here and we're talking about that we're gaining, I guess, if we have residential development on farm ground, the residential development uses less water per year than agriculture. Is that what I read up there? Yeah. Right?
Pretty much.
So what is that ratio? I know that somewhat depends on the density of the housing, but is it 2 to 1? What is that ratio that we're gaining?
I missed the question.
Residential development versus agriculture on a piece of ground.
So right now, the duty on a piece of ground is 3 acre-feet per acre. When we do the calculations for what a residential development requires, we exact a water duty of 3 acre-feet per acre, but we remove the hardscape portions of that. And so we see oftentimes a 75% reduction due to the streets that are put in and things like that. Or excuse me, we see about a 25% reduction over that 3 acre-feet because we remove all that hardscape from there. So
okay, makes sense. One other question for the mayor and for the council. Now, a lot of other cities, municipalities in water districts are contemplating and working up ordinances at this point right now as we speak to limit the amount of turf or sod in a landscape, because that's something that's been considered here by Leighton City. And if so, where are you at on that? Because I'm a believer that turf and sod, yes, a little bit of it, some of it's nice to have, and every yard should have some. The kids need some more to play. But tends to be that most people in Utah, use turf or sod as, in the past, a cheap and easy ground cover. And that's basically, and they want it to look green. So is that something that Leighton City is contemplating at this point as far as putting some restrictions on the available footprint that's left after home and hardscape has been installed?
So we passed an ordinance last year, and Councilmember Fitzpatrick was on the council at the time, and we really focused hard on making sure that we put in some guidelines and some restrictions, but at the same time, we do not want to eliminate turf.
Okay. And that is on residential as well as commercial?
Correct.
Okay, good to know. Well, like I say, there are cities moving in that direction because, we're living in probably the fastest growing state in the United States, or one of them right now. We definitely have a limited amount of water, and some things have got to change. Old timers like me, we've got to get beyond these big, expansive green lawns. There just isn't going to be the water to do it, especially if the state continues to grow the way it does. Thank you once again for your time. Appreciate it.
I also want to acknowledge we have our Planning Commission chair here, Brett. Thank you. I know a lot of the planning commissioners spent a lot of time on this ordinance as well, and I want to say thanks for all their time in making sure we pass what we felt like was the right guidance at the time. So, Councilman Roberts, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just a thought. Mr. Cox and former council member Fitzpatrick brought up the Open Doors building on Leighton Parkway across from the hospital. And that was kind of what I envisioned when we were talking about the new landscape ordinance. Was we're not just throwing out a bunch of gravel. It's some beautiful native plants, Waterwise plants, perennials, I would say. So I think that's the vision. And I thought there was reduction in percentage of turfs in front of buildings as well in that. So yeah, I think I don't think these are discussions that have been happening, and I appreciate your comments, Preston.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak regarding our budget proposed items tonight? If not, Council, I'll turn it back over to you to take some action regarding, first off, we need to close our public hearing. And we do have an option to leave it open if we choose. If you want to leave it open till the next scheduled council meeting, because at that point we would need to close it and then adopt the budget. But you have that option. You have that choice tonight.
Madam Mayor, can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
From Tracy's presentation and Steve's? Thank you. Thanks for digging into the numbers and presenting it in a way that's the big picture. So I appreciate all the efforts of the staff in preparing us. We've been working on this we have since March. Mm-hmm. The staff has since December. I don't know, long time. Just something that we have to do every year. Just a clarification from 2 councils ago, where the water rate increase was from the rate study was adopted, that we needed to have 3 increases, the 35%, and then the 20%, and then the subsequent 10%. And there was a council change between those 2, between 2018 and 2019. And 35% was done and the 20% was done. And after each of those years, you looked at it. You say, all right, where are we? And this model was done with consultants and professional modeling, and we were in line. Well, when we, in 2020, excuse me,
yeah.
We did the same thing. We asked for that information because that's what we do. And it showed that the model had overproduced some revenue. And we felt as a council at that time, and we voted, I think the vote was 4-1, not to move ahead with the increase, because we felt that we were looking at the numbers and it didn't show that we weren't behind. The model was, and so I just wanted to make that clear that in 2021, yes, the pandemic was on us. We didn't do it. We didn't feel like it was the right time, the right thing to do. But in 2020, we wanted to make sure that we're watching the numbers, and if we need it, we need it. If we don't need it, we don't need it. And so that's just my only clarification from the presentation. Other than that, thank you, spot on, and I appreciate the support from the staff.
Yeah, just to echo Councilman Morris's thoughts, because Councilman Thomas and myself and Councilman Morris were on the council at the time, and we would never raise a rate unless we felt it was necessary, and the staff wouldn't recommend that either. And we feel like this is the best route for us to go. Speaking to Don knows that I care a lot about the fixed income folks in our communities, and that's why we wanted to get ahead of this on the water rates, to get the word out so that people could see what it is we were proposing, and before it gets too warm and before the water starts to be used in the summer months, that they can potentially make some changes, and then we can make sure that we give them advanced notice of that. Additionally, the rate structures that were implemented by state law a little while ago have done a great job of getting people into what I consider reasonable water usage. In fact, and Tracy could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe 95% of all of residential users are in what we consider the non-punitive rate structures, and they've done that either on their own or because they've wanted to make changes. And we are not trying to punish anybody for reasonable water usage. And so the fact that we have 95% of our users in what we consider reasonable water usage rates, that's where we want people to be. And last year we conserved 680 million gallons of water just from conservation. That's a hefty bit of water. And that's all thanks to the citizens in making decisions and trying to do their best to be good neighbors to each other. So we hope that we can continue to be in front of this project, this problem, and hopefully we can get some rain, as Steve mentioned. But the fact that 75% of water usage is from outdoor usage, that's where we want people to look at what they can do to curtail while we're in this exceptional drought. So I appreciate the staff and all the hard work they've done on this, and for all the information that Tracy and Steve have provided so that we could make a good decision. And I know I'm sure I can speak for all the mayor and the council that we're all available and ready to answer any questions and to listen to your concerns and to hear what ideas you might have, because we represent you. And so that's the whole purpose of this public hearing, is that we want to hear from you. And if you don't feel comfortable coming up to the microphone or being here in person, I hope you reach out to me or one of the other members of the council or the mayor and make sure that we hear what you have to say.
Any other comments?
Just one clarifying question and then a comment. The slide, Tracy, you put up a slide that said public comment would be taken until the 15th. I understand that'll be until the 16th. Is that correct? Correct. So that this public comment will be gathered, and we'll have an open public meeting, public hearing when we adopt the budget as well. So until our next meeting. But I mentioned it in the work meeting. I sometimes have to stick up for agriculture. And, Steve talked about the $250 million that the legislature put towards secondary metering. They also put $70 million towards ag water optimization. And that's a match, meaning the farmer will put in a certain amount of money and receive the equal amount of money. So that's $140 million of impact in optimizing how agriculture water is used and being more conservative with the agriculture water. So really across the board, we're trying to use water more wisely and make a beautiful, place to live, as well as provide the food and fiber that we need to survive as well.
Very good.
I feel the council has spoken so well about all of this already, but I just want to make sure that residents know that we're trying to mitigate as much as possible to make sure that we still have the water that we need, and that indoor use is most critical. And that's something that we want to make sure is available. And so all of these, the rate increase and the projects that you saw, we hear you. We're doing what we can to try and make the system the best for all of the city. We live here also, so we're not trying to impose anything on you that we're not going to be partaking in as well. But we hear you and we want your ideas. And so please continue to share your thoughts and make sure that you let us know. As Councilmember Bloxham mentioned, we would not do anything to raise rates if we didn't feel it was absolutely necessary, but we are completely open to suggestions, ideas, all of those things. So thank you for all that you've been sharing with us already. We appreciate that.
Okay. Do you want to comment, or are you good? I got the look. He's good. I'll just make one quick comment. And again, a thank you out to all of our residents. I mean, they have been very conscious as far as the usage of water. And as stated earlier, the amount that we've been able to conserve. And I don't know about you, but myself, going through that process last year has certainly made me aware. And it's funny because now the simplest little things, whether I go to turn on the tap to wash my hands, I no longer turn it all the way on. I get the dribble out and kind of just do the bare necessities, because I know every little drop's going to help. And I hope that all of us will continue to do that and have that in the forefront of your minds as we work through these next few months, because they are going to be challenging. But again, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate the input here. And yes, you can see by tonight that we definitely wanted to kind of help educate everyone so they know why we take what action we do. And it's, you've elected us to be in these positions to be responsible and to be good fiduciary, responsible people on your behalf. So again, we'll keep it sounds like we're keeping our public hearing open, which is wise. But Council, I'll bring it back to you again for some action. I need somebody to make a motion, in other words. You can keep it open until the next meeting. Yeah.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we leave the public hearing open until our next meeting on June 16th and adjourn.
Second.
Okay. I do not have to do a roll call on that. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for attending your city council meeting tonight.